sure this header's in focus because it's a friggin' awesome article. So click the link for Odysee, Bit Chute to join channel, become a member, or support channel through the various other means, subscribe, star, coffee, and that kind of stuff, or just drop a link or join the Discord, the Gab, that kind of thing. So I saw a little bit a Sunday stream, a little bit of the discussion between Nerdette's newsstand, Tristan, and Shane and some other people. I don't remember. I'm not that familiar with Shane's channel. And first of all, I heard a bunch of stuff going back and forth. First of all, let me say, and Tristan is sincere. She's not. I heard someone saying, they maybe made this video. I heard someone say, I'm not simping for anyone. This is the fucking internet. She's only doing it for attention. She just wants to bring eyeballs to her channel. No, that's absolutely. I mean, if you think about that, like if you're familiar with her channel, that's not true. She's a chick on the internet who, if she wanted attention for her channel, she would just be on camera in a tank top, and her channel would be at like 250,000 subs. That's how the internet works. So, I mean, even when someone says something like that, like she's just trying to draw some fire to get some eyeballs, dog, not now. That's not a fair thing to say, because if you're a chick on the internet and you're like under 200 pounds, all you have to do is go on camera, do your makeup and go on camera, and you're going to have a ton of freaking eyeballs. Oh, this is an awesome movie. You're going to have a ton of eyeballs. So that's not fair to say about Nerdette, who I think is she's a real sweetheart. She seems really nice, to have sincerely held beliefs that, I disagree with, and you probably disagree with her tastes in things. But she's definitely not doing this for some of the things people said. It takes a certain testicular fortitude to go in a hostile audience like that. And, an audience that's definitely the Comicsgates side. And, say your piece about how you think the industry is going. Now, here's the thing. When you find yourself... So I like Tristan, and I don't think she's doing it for this kind of stuff. And the discussion it wasn't a debate, and it wasn't an argument. It was just a discussion. And it went fine. People did fine. Here's the thing. When you find yourself arguing over something where there's like empirical evidence and corroborating evidence and indirect evidence on both sides, and ultimately you don't have direct evidence because you would have to go to an insider and get hard data, and without a court order, without some kind of legal redress of grievance, you're not going to get that direct evidence. So it's all just indirect evidence. So there's a couple of things to say, like, who won the argument? Well, the audience, because it's just entertainment. That for the most part, it's entertainment. It was a case of there's a lot of shifting goalposts, and you can't win an argument when you're constantly shifting goalposts on what you're arguing about. So let me tell you the story but both sides made some good points, and this Shane guy made really good point. And he didn't use the phrase transformative versus curative, but that's kind of what he was alluding to. He made some very good points about how you are kind of a steward of a property that someone else created. And you could tell it meant a lot to him, because he said he was a fan first before he became an artist or whatever he is. And there was, you could hear a little bit of passion in his voice about hearing, and a lot of people felt that way. It's like they grew up with these characters, and to see them just turned into just this bizarre chimera of the author's social justice, like whatever is politically popular for that day, to turn into like just throw everything, every hot word, every kitchen sink issue at it, and just make this character be this straw man to do whatever you want it to do. It's like, yeah, there's going to be people who, no, they're not, the Chads are outraged. No, they're 30, 40, and 50, and they're not outraged. It's comics. We've moved on with our lives. It's just, you look at something like, it's a shame they ruined it. Because that's what they did. They ruined it. Okay, so both sides made some very good points. But let me tell you this story. This company is called, say, Prawn Star. And it was back in the late 80s or the early 90s. It was a band under that name, and they were selling T-shirts and hats and stuff, merchandise at their shows. And as a band, I guess they weren't that great, but people would come to the shows just to buy the merchandise. And so they decided to shut the band down and just sell this merchandise while the market is hot. And so if you look at it from the perspective as, okay, well, as a band, say they were making $50,000 a year, and then they get into merchandise, and as they're playing fewer shows and focusing more on making merchandise, the band's revenues are dropping, but the merchandise revenues are increasing. Now, so if you look at the total books of it, you're like, oh, the overall sales are doing well. Yeah, but the goalposts have shifted. You shifted away from the band, Pronstar, to the merchandise company, which in Santa Barbara and LA in the early 90s was like, it was what hot chicks would wear. If you were 110-pound blonde, you'd wear a porn star t-shirt, and like you might not ever have even seen a movie. You're not really connected what that word is. It just, to a lot of people's minds, it just meant hot chick who had the confidence to wear something like this. It wasn't like, before I went down the rabbit hole, I've made videos about that adult industry on Bit Chute and Odysee. It is vile, reprehensible. I had no idea. But anyway, that's the story of that company. Now, here's the thing when I say both Tristan and Shane made good points, because it's more complicated than just so we're talking about sales of comics, Captain Marvel, America, Spider-Man, Hulk, Superman, Batman, that kind of stuff, like the biggest names in the world. Probably Superman, Batman, Spider-Man now, especially Spider-Man. So we're talking about that North American comics being sold. And now the Woofloo threw a wrench into it, so you could technically have fewer paper sales and more sales digitally. I don't believe that. You don't believe that. You've read digital versus paper. It's not the same thing. And a lot of people, to understand comics, you have to understand that there are people like myself who read the stories, and there are other people who collect the rests, the RES, the thing in and of itself as a collectible item, a physical thing that is collectible. That's not me, and that's not like I'm a story person. About other people, they collect these things, they collect figurines, they collect a lot of stuff, they collect this stuff. So for me to read something digitally is not the end of the world, but no, it's not as good as having something paper. So yes, because of the Woofloo, you could track the sales on, Comicron is out there. You could track the sales on Comicron, and predictably sales just continue to decrease because the stuff, it's getting woke. And even Tristan admitted this stuff there's SGWs in comics. So then Comicron no longer got the sales when the Woofloo hit, because there was, pencils down, right? And a little bit of panic in the industry there. And so theoretically, things could have gone digital and sales could have increased. Nobody thinks that's likely. Nobody thinks if you pay $4 for a paper comic, you're going to go digitally and pay the same $4. No, because for the reason I just said, there's a lot of people who are buying the thing to collect the thing in and of itself. You can't collect a digital comic unless they have some NFT thing in the future. So most people, reasonable people, are going to look at this and go, there's no way digital sales are even 10% of what the paper sales were. So that aspect of things decreased. Oh, and then Comicron came out with their estimates. Now, before the Woofloo, you could look at paper sales and like, something started at, 50,000 as it trends downwards. It's like you can just map a mathematical, you can figure out equations to figure out an algebraic equation to map a curve, right? And these curves are pretty predictable. But then when it went to digital and Comicron wasn't getting those hard numbers anymore, they started estimating sales. And their estimates, I used to follow Comicron when I looked at comics more often. Their estimates are absolute, just pie in the sky. They're pulled out of thin air. If a comic was started at 50,000, if you follow the curve from thousands of other mathematical formulas, you go, okay, well, right before the Woofloo, it was at 22,000, so we can follow this curve and we can predict it out. And unless something changes, like a new artist or writer, it's going to follow this curve with a correlation. All this is math. It's a correlation predicted, and it's very, very tightly correlated to prior performance. And then Comicron comes out and they goes, oh, well, the actual sales would be like a 17.5. Comicron's estimate would be like 22,000 to 44,000. And there's not a chance in hell of any. These estimates are the estimates are even worse than your predictions, because most people are not going to buy digital. They're not going to pay the same price for digital as for paper. So those estimates are way, way off. Okay, the next thing is the moving goalposts and this concept of future customers. Are you selling to 40-year-old, 50-year-olds and that age group? So here's the thing with the bottom line of comic sales. If you go if a company is selling $100 million every year, and every year it may go fluctuates a little bit, but the new stuff starts selling a little bit less, and they start selling T-shirts, or they start selling collections of old materials. Okay, so their bottom line might be staying the same, or it might actually be increasing, but you're not selling the current stories because they're woke. I read them. They're horrible. They're absolutely unreadable. They're just SJW propaganda. It's as bad as it ever was. So, but if you're making that up for old collections of older stuff, pre-wokeness, pre-2000 or 2010, when stories were more enjoyable to people, you go, oh, our bottom line is increasing. Yes, but this is affecting your long-term future because you're not getting kids. If you don't get kids, you don't have a future. Now, to be fair, no company, no industries don't have to last forever. If comics, went for 80 years, 90 years, American comics anyway, and manga is going to come along and take over. It's like, okay, well, maybe the industry's not meant to last forever, but if you were looking to the future to carry the company on, plant a seed so your future generations can rest under the shade of the tree, you'd be doing everything you could to get the new customer. You would fire all these SJWs. So my point is that the Comicsgate guys, Shane, and those guys were correct, because, and Angleton maybe talks about this too. I think Mike Miller has mentioned this years ago. If you're not getting these new customers and you're selling back issues of stuff to 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds, they're going to eventually age out of it. And there's nobody to replace them because the stories are fundamentally, this is a defective product. It's a fundamentally flawed. You're not getting new customers when Superman is getting snuggled, or when Ironheart is not. It went for 12. Ironheart was an Iron Man ripoff. It went for 12 issues, which was all very low selling. Or Hulk is some Korean guy, which was very low selling. Or Captain America, or no, Thor is a woman with cancer, and Captain America is now anti-white for some reason. And all these, like, Batman's a whining guy with PMS who just whines and cries the whole time. And so you go to the movies and you see these, like, Tony Stark Iron Man with Robert Downey Jr. Like, okay, maybe I'll go to the comic book store and try to get some of that old vibe back to see where, because Iron Man, Spider-Man, Daredevil were my jam as a kid, and maybe a little bit of Batman. Those were, I just thought those were amazing machines to tell stories. The Iron Man was a certain type of story, Spider-Man was a certain type, and Daredevil was a certain type. And you look at them from 30,000 feet, you think, oh, they're pretty similar. Yeah, they are, but there were slightly different mechanisms in which to tell a story. And I thought they were all brilliant. I still do. I mean, except for a certain time when they started to change fairly recently. I mean, like within the past few decades, which is fairly recently. So people go watch these movies, and they go, okay, I'll go get some of that nostalgia back. I'll go see what Iron Man is doing. You read it, and you're like, oh my God, what the hell is this? Ironheart? What is this? This is some plucky purse puppy who can do no wrong. This looks like cancer to me. This looks like somebody, a diversity checklist, or, oh my God, American Chavez, or anything within the past 10 years. There's been the vast majority of it has been absolute dog shit. It's not for kids. It's not for adults. It's for, like, college chicks who are out of college. I don't know who it's for exactly. To be fair, there is a lot of, like, 40 and 50-year-old guys who are buying these things and collecting them without ever opening the page. It's like there are people who have Squirrel Girl went 50 issues, and it's not a high dollar collectible, if I remember correctly, but it is something like somebody has all 50 issues of that in perfect condition. It's like they're selling that stuff online, and I think if I remember right, they're selling it for more than they paid for it. I mean, it's not like a high dollar thing, but it's like nobody's collecting Squirrel Girl because they're reading the stories. They're collecting all 50 issues of Squirrel Girl because they want the thing itself to go on their shelf for whatever reasons. It's the mind of a collector is different from me, the mind of a reader. And that's one of the splits in comics and stories and books. Like I have, like, people read books, and some people have they do their best to get these certain editions of books. And it's like, I just want to read the book, and then I'll give it away to somebody when I'm done with it, and I'll get a new one, or I'll get a used book from online or something. So when I heard this argument between Shane and Tristan, it's like the goalposts were all over the place. I was kind of sloppy on both people's part. And there's a little bit of argument from emotion. But I will say Shane had some good points about the transformative versus curative thing. But also, and I didn't hear all of the thing, but I will say the one point I didn't hear brought up was that concept of if you're not getting these new customers, it's like, yes, your bottom line may be increasing or you know what, I have heard Zach talk about this years ago. He calls it like short-term money. And it's short-term in the terms of like 5 or 10 years where, you know, really you should be thinking in terms of 50 years or 100 years. And I know people, it's like they just don't think like that. It's like there's no reason you couldn't have kept comics going for another 50 years or another 100 years. Now that's impossible because it's like the Yanzi was using this termite infested the building thing. And yeah, at this point, you'd have to burn the whole building down and build it somewhere else. It's like, oh, welcome to Comicsgate. Oh, what are you talking about? Comicsgate is less than 1% of sales. Yeah, but they're good sales. They're fundamentally selling a good product. Let me say this, for Comicsgate, there's more good products than bad products. For the mainstream industries, there's more bad products than good products, and there's no hope on the horizon of good products. Where Comicsgate is only going to get better. So it's like you can map these curves of one is, you know, exponential growth and one is exponential decay, and eventually they're going to cross over, or you know, other factors may arise. The platform, this is like Comicsgate is very platform dependent. So unless people like make a sudden move to move to Odysee, like if the platform does something funky to Comicsgate and Phantom Menace, which is very well could, it would all depend on like how well the Comicsgate community recovers from that. If they go to Odysee, which I cannot recommend highly enough. Anyway, so I do want to say, in Nerdette's defense, like some of the things people are saying about her are just like it's not accurate. Even though I don't agree with her on any of her takes whatsoever. But she is sincere, and she's not just doing this to bring eyeballs to her channel. If she wanted to do that, you know, if I was a chick her age, you know, reasonably skinny, I would just, you know, be on camera with my makeup done and be getting those eyeballs to grow the channel as much as I possibly could. Like, you don't have to be a total whore or anything, but, you know, it is what it is. I don't know how to say this. It's like you got to use the tools in your arsenal. It's like men don't have those tools. When Zach, you know, said like he's not on camera because he's just a normal looking 40 to 50-year-old guy. There's nothing special to him talking about videos, and he's right. But someone like Ethan is on camera because he's very expressive and very physical with his motions and his gestures and his facial expressions and even his costumes and his background. It's like he's doing a whole thing. Like a lot of YouTubers are doing a whole thing with their background settings. Like, I mean, yeah, green screens now. It's kind of amazing. And with costumes and all kinds of silliness, but it's very engaging to the audience, which is very brings in a lot of fresh eyeballs, which is great because you're bringing in super chats and you're bringing in, you know, ultimately you bring in entertainment to people. So like, who won this debate between Tristan and Shane and Yanzi and I forget the other guy's name, Comic Boom, I think he's got a comics, he's some kind of Canadian, because he kept saying like, what's this all about? Like, oh my god. I mean, it's. You can't win a debate if you don't have defined goals and you keep moving those goals. I can look at before I even look at the numbers, or you know, you get tugged to look at the numbers. You can look at the source material, the product itself, the comics itself. They're not very good, and retail stores don't close if the product is good. So you can make a lot of excuses like, oh, they all went digitally, and nobody believes that. That's nobody buys that. Stores don't close, or they don't switch over to board games and video games and other things if sales are good. I've been loosely following this thing for a few years now. The product fundamentally sucks. It's it's like Blonde Man Bad, Blue Eyed Man. You go through, my favorite example is Immortal Hulk, because I remember issues 1 and issue 11, the blue-eyed, blonde-haired kid, and there's a lecture on the Second Amendment. There's blue-eyed, blonde-haired motorcycle gangs, and the antagonists are all blue or green-eyed. It's just the most ridiculous thing ever. In issue 11, a black woman goes to hell with Hulk, Immortal Hulk, by Al Ewing, and she's talking about how white college-educated guys like the Hulk are free to cause massive destruction and all this it was just the most. You can find it online. It's issues 1 and issues 11 of the Immortal Hulk. It will make you insane to read issue 11. She's saying things about like talking about like these white college educated men are known for raging and destroying cities and acting out. And it's like she's a black woman telling this to the Hulk, and it's like, what's the color of the sky in your world, Al Ewing? I think he's in the UK, so he has no idea what's going on. To say something like that is just like, it's not college educated physicists. I don't know what Bruce Banner is, who are how to piss off comic book nerds. Call it like, oh, he's the guy with the Pym particles, right? It's the Pym particles. It's like Star Trek and Star Wars or something. It's like a touchdown in the I don't know, the third inning. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next episode.